Ready?
Ready?
Yeah. Islam, Moors. Islam. Let's get started up. Prayer.
Five on the left, two on the right.
5 on the left, 2 on the right. Phone's on vibrate. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice.
And justice.
Allah is our protector.
Allah is our protector.
Our guide.
Our guide.
And our salvation.
And our salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through his and her holy prophet.
Through his and her holy prophet.
Noble Jew Ali.
Noble Jew Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Ameen.
Ameen.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Islam.
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 Islam, Moors. Start off with one of the readings from the Moorish Guide newspaper, September 1928. It is not unusual for a newspaper to make its debut in the city of Chicago. The past years have been many such come and many such go, have seen many such come and many such go. The Moorish Guide, taking its initial bow to the public, knows not what the future awaits it, but throwing its efforts on the sides of right, reason, and tolerance, we hope that we might make the grade. The Moorish Guide enters the field of journalism with malice toward none and charity to all. It is not our purpose to disregard the work of other splendid journals. It is not our purpose to fail to give due attention and space to all American citizens, individuals, and organizations alike who are working in their chosen fields of endeavor for the progress and development of all American citizens and all American institutions. We hope to cooperate with them in the intensive and grueling battle for universal justice. The Moorish Guide feels that the greatest weapon in the hands of our group today in America is our press. The truth will never be told about a disadvantaged minority by the general press of any country, whether that minority be racial, political, or religious, unless we express ourselves through papers of our own. The truth about us will not be told. Many of our accomplishments, many of the beautiful things, many of the hopeful things, and events which mark the progress of our group will go unnoticed, unrecorded, were it not for papers of our own. Our papers are our only hope of shoveling ourselves out from under the avalanche of lies that are annually let loose upon us. A strong free press is the best possible safeguard for the liberties in general promotion and defense of the interests of strong free people. And that was Noble Jew Ali. So we're reading that to get on the record that our greatest defense is our press. Our greatest weapon is our press. The thing that we can use the most in order to shovel ourselves out from the avalanche of lies that are annually let loose upon us is our press. One of the means that Canaanland Moors uses is Ustream as our press, and video and YouTube and right DVDs, etc., right, to get the information out to the people, right? Now, what we're putting on the record today is based on a article piece from an article that came out. Oh, you're here for Sister Sophia?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just in that second room right there. All right. Yes, kid. Yeah, the open one right there. So two North Carolina detectives build program for dealing with sovereign citizens. This is from the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they basically, this is their intelligence project director, Heidi Beirich, Beirich. All right. But before we get to that, before we get too heavy,
Not heavy enough.
right? Before we get too heavy, we're just going to recap some things that we've addressed before that, based on circumstances, we're going to bring them up again. First thing we're going to bring up is the Moorish Defense League. Well, you get a good look at that. All right. The Moorish Defense League is an organization founded by Moors in order to deal with propaganda against Moors, because that's one of our biggest threats right now. One of our biggest threats right now is the fact that people are trying to make Moorish Americans who are lawful, law-abiding citizens into some type of terrorist group. So the Moorish Defense League is an institution set up by Moors in order to deal with the matters of propaganda against Moors. So today, I'm acting as representative sanctioned by the Moorish Defense League to deal with propaganda that comes, to the table of the Moors, and we present the propaganda and have adepts or higher level sheiks address these issues of propaganda so that the people can be clear about what our press is for. Because we get into, the thing about class, and, we're not even supposed to be in class and stuff like that. We're supposed to be already taking our place amongst the affairs of men and governing ourselves accordingly. But because of the sellout, right, which, we already know exists, this is why we're at this situation right now, right, where we can't really deal with what we're supposed to be dealing with, right? We spoke about a few classes back. We spoke about the Anti-Defamation League institution set up by Ashkenazis, so that when people put out propaganda against them, they can do something about it, right? They have an arm that is going to deal with the issues that come up against these people. So when the good brother Khalid Muhammad El Bey, because he said that he's a Moor, so we're just going to call him El Bey for the lack of not knowing whether he was El or Bey or whatever, but he nationalized. So Khalid Muhammad El Bey, when he was spearheading the fight against the Jews, when he was in the Nation of Islam, the Anti-Defamation League were the people that came out and set a barrage on him as far as propaganda and to defame his character because of the truth that he was speaking, right?
Who are the Ashkenazis?
Just the people who call themselves Jews, but they're not that.
Okay, so you're saying that this group is almost like a counterintelligence group in
Yeah.
a sense, in some way, or
Right.
some form.
Some form, right? Anti-Defamation League. They were founded in 1913. Right? Just so we can parallel everything with why Noble Drew Ali came and the importance of getting him out the way as far as the enemy is concerned.
It was founded 1913.
1913. So the Anti-Defamation League had on their website a section called Sovereign Citizen Movement. And then in this Sovereign Citizen Movement, they speak about prominent groups and individuals. And the last group that they mention are Moorish groups. So under Moorish groups, it says, the resurgence of sovereign citizen activity in the 1990s led to an unexpected development. The appropriation of sovereign citizen ideology and tactics by a variety of African American groups. These groups generally identify themselves as Moors, combine standard sovereign citizen theories with many new twists and additions of their own. Some groups are to varying degrees Islamic in nature, while others adhere to various New Age philosophies. Examples include the Moorish Nation, the United Moshak Nation of Moors, and the Washita Nation. A number of such groups have ties to traditional sovereign citizen groups. Many of their tactics are the same too, from bogus automobile documents to redemption. And then it says, do-it-yourself automobile documents, a Washita Nation license plate, and a quote-unquote registration card issued and stamped by the Embassy of Heaven. And then they show this thing right here. Right? So there has been a constant avalanche of lies annually let loose upon us. And we have people that call themselves heads. They call themselves grand and supreme and things of that nature. But their activity doesn't express that they're handling the affairs of the people. Because the people are the ones that put all the heads in power. Right? The heads that are in power because of the people. Not because of those people having some type of superior power. Right? So we're going to go to the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America just to push the point that the Negro, black, colored people, the Moors, the dark-skinned people, the whoever that they say they are the ones that put the heads in power. So the head's obligation is to the people. They can't do their own thing when they want to do it. Right? We read Anti-Defamation League. Other than the Moorish Defense League, I haven't heard anybody, as far as Moorish movement is concerned, address the Anti-Defamation League slander of the Moors. all these temples around here, right? And the heads of them aren't stepping up to use our press, which is our greatest weapon in the hands of our group today, and fix the problems that need to be fixed, right? So active Moors take it onto themselves to start their own Moorish Guide newspaper. Forget sitting down waiting for somebody to do something. If you have knowledge of yourself, you have knowledge of the Prophet, you have knowledge that you're not Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian, personally, you're adept and you need to get out there and start doing something to change this mess. We have no waiting until you're adept and then you go teach. No, if you know in your mind, I'm not Negro, black, colored, I'm a Moor. All right, you better be out there teaching. Whether it's people at your work, whether it's people you see on the bus, whether it's your friends, your family, whatever. But we can't sit back anymore and not do anything when things happen. And things have been happening. Again, Anti-Defamation League, they have Moors under sovereign citizen movement. Moors are listed under that category of sovereign citizen movement. When it's a fact that if any sincere people go and listen to any active Moors, videos, DVDs, YouTube, Ustream, they clearly and specifically say that we're not sovereign citizens. And we don't use that term and we don't call ourselves that. Mind you, there are some Moors who do say that they are sovereign citizens.
Sorry, what were you saying? That you were saying some of them don't call themselves that?
So active Moors. There's passive Moors and active Moors.
Yeah.
All right. In the jurisdiction of active Moors, there's a split.
Okay.
There's active Moors who follow the law, and then there's active Moors who try to adopt European pseudo-sovereign concepts and apply them to Moorish nationality and birthrights. Right?
It's warping the truth.
Warping the truth, because they could just go with the law and not have any problems. But they decide to go with the sovereigns. When they talk about Moors connected to the sovereign citizen movement, they're not talking about Moors like us. They're not talking about Moors like Great Seal Moors. Right? They're not talking about Moors like Clock of Destiny Moors. They're not talking about Moors like Moors Order of the Round Table Moors and Great Seal Moorish Science Temple of America Moors, or Moorish Holy Temple of Science Moors, or Old Canaanite Temple Moors. That's not who they're talking about when they connect Moors to sovereign citizen movements. They're specifically talking about Moors who choose to adopt European pseudo-sovereign concepts and apply those things to Moorish nationality and birthrights when they don't match up like that. Right? This is why in Canaanland we push that we don't deal with UCCs and filing papers with unknown face people. Nothing's wrong with that. If you know how to contract, sure, go ahead and contract. But we as a temple, we see that as confusion. We see that as people being diverted away from the Prophet.
Was there not, from what I remember, sort of walking along that path for a while?
Never.
No, there wasn't anything with the UCC ones and that stamp and that stuff like that.
The UCC 1-103, UCC 1-207 is not filing anything. That's just using a code that's available for anybody that has knowledge of it. Well, you don't have to file anything to use those codes.
You're talking about the added concept of actually filing under those hearings. Because
Right?
I had been thinking about this a couple of days ago, realizing that, yet again, even the mere fact that we're in their courts, to me, shows the fact that we're still not where we need to be.
Yeah, but we're not where we need to be because Anti-Defamation League's been doing whatever since
They're doing a
1913.
good job.
Okay, and Moors haven't done jack shit
I'm agreeing, but
since 1913.
I'm agreeing.
Like nothing at all.
I'm agreeing. I'm just saying that that's part of a problem that really, until we get our own courts.
Forget getting our own courts, right? Because where we gonna get our own courts and then have dirty Moors as the judges in there?
Oh, okay.
We need to clean house. And by the activity of the heads, people would know where to gravitate, where to go to. If the heads aren't doing nothing, more than likely there are some passive Moors. Don't waste your time. If you're somebody who's active and, you know what I mean, if you're not just sit down and pray to Noble Drew Ali and worship him like he's, you know, some religious whatever, right? If you're somebody who is willing to stand up for your birthright at the loss of your life because you know exactly what it is and you're not confused about it, just like, you know, in Tiananmen Square or whatever, you know, buddy's gonna lie down in front of the tank because he knows about his birthright. And he's willing to get run over by a tank for his birthright. Just like a monk's willing to sit down and pour gasoline on himself and light himself a fire for his birthright. Well, Moors aren't that serious yet with their birthright. Moors still call themselves Negro black colored, thinking that that's cool. Right? Not knowing that you're being swept under the rug by identifying with that. And then now you nationalize now, and then when you nationalize, you're still getting swept under the rug under the sovereign citizen movement. Because of Moors not doing their job. Because of Moors pushing this movement like it's not constitutional, and we're not supposed to stand up for the law, and we're not supposed to enforce the law of the land on the violators and the inquisitionists and the colonizers and whoever else comes in this land and abuses their authority.
Is this another, sorry, to get off topic, but does it really matter whether it's a conscious activity or unconscious in a sense?
Well,
I mean,
the conscious activity is
someone getting confused, going off in a direction versus someone yet again almost thinking that these are somehow agents.
I would say I would rather somebody have an idea about their birthright and go try something, opposed to not do anything. I'd rather you get your birthright and go in the wrong direction, and you might get your ass kicked. But if you care about your birthright, you'll die for it. So ass kicking isn't really nothing. Right? So, as heads, we have an obligation to the people. Right? We have an obligation to the people. Not because we say so, but because it's written in the law. And the law, or one of the books of the law for the Moors, is the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. This is one of the books of the laws that the Moors go by. Right? How do we know that it's the book of the laws? Because there's a chapter in here called Magistrate and Subject. And those are definitely lawful terms. Those are religious terms. Those aren't, again, this is the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Holy Quran. This is the holy book. And it's talking about being divinely prepared by the noble prophet and the Father God Allah and the God of the universe and uplifting fallen humanity back to the highest plane of life, and right? But there's a chapter in here called Magistrate and Subject, which to inept individual would seem to be a conflict of interest. Because why is there a law stuff in the holy book? Right? But the 10 Commandments are laws. The 42 laws of Ma'at is where the 10 Commandments come from. So law is part of religion. So magistrate and subject.
42 laws of what?
Ma'at. M-A-A-T. Or 42 confessions of Ma'at. Magistrate and subject. O thou the favorite of heaven, whom the sons of men, thy equals, have agreed to raise to sovereign power, and set as a ruler over themselves. Consider the ends and importance of their trusts, far more than the dignity and height of thy station. Consider the ends and the importance of their trust, far more than the dignity and the height of thy station. So if those lines right there don't tell you that the heads are subordinate to the membership or the citizens or the people or whatever, then you see why we're where we are right now, having to go through madness. Right? We talked about domestic extremism lexicon. All this is stuff that we talked about already, dealt with already, but we're just bringing it back up again, just so people are clear about what's going on and why the Moorish Defense League is starting to step up activity with regard to propaganda against Moors. Because all these so-called grand, etc., and whoever else they are sitting down, chilling, while the Moorish nation is being attacked. Any questions or anything? Or comments?
Yeah, no. So what is it exactly that they are doing?
Who's that?
These guys right now. I mean, I know that they're coming up with literature, but I mean, is there other things that they are?
Well, again, this is like hot off the press. Like this, today's the day. It's dropping today. That the Moorish Defense League, and then we have the contacts of the Moors that are heading it for people to go out, reach out to them, so we can start getting down to real business as far as taking care of this propaganda that's going on. Because it's bigger than, them just mentioning Moors in some document.
Yeah.
Right? It's way bigger than that. Right? This is the nation that's under attack right now. Right? Now, in the domestic extremism lexicon, black nationalism, a term used by black separatists to promote the unification and separate identity of persons of black or African American descent who advocate the establishment of a separate nation within the United States. Black power, a term used by black separatists to describe their pride in and the perceived superiority of the black race. Black separatism, a movement of groups or individuals of black or African American descent who advocate the separation of the races or the separation of specific geographic regions from the rest of the United States. Some advocate forming their own political systems such as a separate nation. Such other groups, individuals, may also embrace radical religious beliefs. Members have been known to advocate or engage in criminal activity and plot acts of violence directed toward local law enforcement in an attempt to advance their extremist goals. Now keep in mind, the press, right?
That's propaganda though too, right?
What's that?
What you just been reading is propaganda.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That means propaganda big time. That means propaganda in the highest level, because none of those people are African American, black, whatever it is that
That's
they're
right.
calling them in these
calling
briefs.
them these things, and then they're telling them that basically they're trying to put the light that we are up to no good.
Oh, right.
But they're not even giving us our identity.
Right. Which means that they are violating the UN drip, as they call it,
That's right.
that President Obama, the Moor, who went to Morocco and gave the speech about how United States was founded on Muslim law. And then at the same time, the children and the First Lady are in the Alhambra at the exact same time. They're in the Alhambra, which is the last stronghold of the Moors, and that's what it's known as. And we're gonna think they don't know what's going on. We just think that he's not gonna get the information about, yeah, there are Moors over here, and sign the declarations because he has an obligation to that constitution that he took an oath to uphold. Noble Ali told the Moors, again, in our greatest weapon, the press, it is most earnestly hoped that the Moorish Science Temple of America will not in any way be confused with any Back to Africa movement. So he put it in the press, which is the public record, that we don't have nothing to do with that black crap.
Then in that very
But then in this very lexicon,
telling us that that's what we're about.
they're saying that
That's what
this is what black people are about. When Noble Ali said in 1913, we're not Negro, black, colored. Right? Propaganda, right? So one of the heads, and again, all this is stuff that we talked about already, but we're just setting the stage right now. We're just setting the stage. So one of the founders of the Moorish Defense League is a brother by the name of Jabbar Gaines Ill. And that's the Moor that took it upon himself to go into his own pocket and bring me to Indiana for that summit. When I went to Indiana, right? Because he felt for himself that it was necessary for Canaanland to be represented at that summit. So he went into his own pocket, right? So that I could get there. So he's been in the news. This is from February 8th, 2012. Editor's note. Local media, politicians attack Moorish Americans. This is from Frost Illustrated. FrostIllustrated.com. Editor's note. In the wake of sensational news stories raising questions and innuendo against a group of people working hard to reclaim their true cultural heritage, an honorable local representative of the United Moorish Republic graciously agreed to make Frost Illustrated the official publication where he would answer queries and criticisms from area politicians and media figures. We urge you to read the following with an open and inquiring mind. So this is April 2012. 11. Despite recent attacks to assassinate the integrity of Moorish Americans by local politicians, such as John Magali, county recorder, and Frank Gray, reporter for the Journal Gazette newspaper, along with coverage airing on News Channel 15, local Moorish American citizens remain calm and unmoved by the last spewing of negative propaganda propelled by the highest degrees of ignorance in the U.S. and international law. They have been issuing such misleading statements such as, their documents hold no legal weight, or the filing of Moorish nationality documents is related to some sort of subversive act to circumvent their responsibilities. All citizens and non-citizens alike can simply study the U.S. Constitution and international law, the U.S. Treaty with the Moors, as well as the national identification of the Moors, can easily bear witness that the Moorish Americans have been vindicated. In fact, the ACLU was brought into existence for individuals like these, and to function in the capacity of an elected official and make such disparaging and blanketed remarks against an entire group of people in our society should never be tolerated by those who voted him into office. Maybe the county recorder should review his oath of office. I wonder if our county recorder accepts the premise that all Jews are greedy, that all Mexicans are illegal, that all Asians have black belts in karate. Perhaps all Burmese are unclean. Why not? He views Moorish Americans filing documents as criminal suspects. Now in reality, who are the Moors? Answer: they are the descendants of the aboriginal people of the land, regardless of the continent in question. Here in the Americas, North, Central, and South, and the adjoining islands, we received our pedigree from our ancient Moabites who were already here when the continents broke apart from being a single landmass as taught in public schools as Pangea. Due to the monumental earthquakes, the word Moor means black, as well as love, such as amore. We were known as educators of the world. We were simply called the beloved blacks from the collective nationalities throughout the world, from ancient Sumeria to ancient Egypt, ancient Israel to Al-Andalus, modern Spain, all the way to the ancient Americas, and we are still here today. Only we have been denationalized and misnomered as Negro, Black, Colored, African American, Puerto Rican, Latino, etc., etc. We are dark to light brown skin, coarse to wavy-haired people of the world. But it is my contention there exists a conspiracy within the local halls of government to deliver smear tactics against the Moorish Republic with the aim and attempts to discourage unregistered Moors, blacks, and Latinos from declaring their true and authentic nationality with their very own government, which would otherwise be kept secret from them within the secured records of local Shriners and Masons, thus resulting in them never exercising and enjoying the birthrights of free people, the birthrights of which we have not enjoyed from the Spanish Inquisition to the present day mental slavery of our people. So that's one article. And if you go to newssentinel.com and search sovereignty movement will require less of more. This is by Kevin Leininger. You know all these Jewish last names by all these reporters, right? Kevin Leininger. According to its website, the Allen County Recorder's Office preserves many of the community's most important records, ranging from home mortgages and neighborhood covenants to business names and military discharge documents. Boring. But just last week, it was again the target of groups apparently determined to use seemingly mundane documents for the purpose that are legally questionable or worse. And then it just goes on and on about filing paperwork at the court, and the paperwork's fraud, and why are they doing this, and they shouldn't be able to do this, and where are they getting the authority to file these paperwork, and we shouldn't allow them to do this.
So they're basically trying to put a campaign of negative press.
Not trying, because there's some states where you go now where you can't file in the county recorder.
That's what you told me.
They won't let you. They'll block you if you come with Moorish paperwork to file at the county. They'll tell you, nope, we're not filing it. Period. That person shouldn't be going there filing no paperwork by themselves. That's the Grand Sheik's job to go do that. Right? Now, if this individual is going by themselves, then obviously they're not a member. Because if they're a member, that's the head's work. Right? Now, for example, with us, we make sure people are there first before they even get a paper, before they even get a card. We don't just send people go file anything. You make sure nationality and birthrights is in your mind before anything. Because paper is not going to do anything. Paper is not going to help you if you don't know what you wrote on that paper. If you just copy pasting, you're in trouble. Because they're saying that people who do these, filings and stuff are paper terrorists. This is what they're labeling them as. Paper terrorists.
Wow.
Right? But the people who are printing fiat, they're not paper terrorists though.
No.
Right? But the people who are filing paperwork to go secure their birthright and get themselves out of this corporate status, they're terrorists. But when you think about it, from the democracy perspective, yeah, they are terrorists. Right? And then there's just articles. Fall 2011, Sovereigns in Black by Lee Nielsen. Same thing. John Macaulay, court recorder. Crap. July 26, 2011. imorewordpress.com. Another rebuttal about the same county court recorder that doesn't want to let anything get filed. Now there's this book. You might be able to get this online still. There's this book called Government Conspiracy to Destroy the Separation of Powers. So government conspiracy to destroy the separation of powers. So you can go see if you can find that book online.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah, these flowers do the
Oh yeah. Crazy. Right? So Section 3. Separate, sovereign, foreign. Going along with the notion of the separation of powers doctrine in the previous section is the concept of sovereignty. Sovereignty is the foundation of all government in America and fundamental to understanding our American system of government. Below is how President Theodore Roosevelt, one of our most beloved presidents, describes sovereignty. We of this mighty Western Republic have to grapple with the dangers that spring from popular self-government tried on a scale incomparably vaster than ever before in the history of mankind. and from an abounding material prosperity, greater also than anything which the world has hitherto seen. As regards the first set of dangers, it behooves us to remember that men can never escape being governed. Either they must govern themselves, or they must submit to being governed by others. If from lawlessness or fickleness, from folly or self-indulgence, they refuse to govern themselves, then most assuredly, in the end, they will have to be governed from the outside. They can prevent the need of government from without only by showing they possess the power of government from within. A sovereign cannot make excuses for his failures. A sovereign must accept the responsibility for the exercise of power that inheres in him. And where, as it is true in our republic, the people are sovereign, when the people must show a sober understanding and a sane and steadfast purpose if they are to preserve that orderly liberty upon which, as a foundation, every republic must rest. President Theodore Roosevelt, opening of Jamestown Exposition, Norfolk, Virginia, April 26, 1907. Sovereignty is defined in man's law as follows in Black's Law Dictionary: the supreme, absolute, and uncontrollable power by which any independent state is governed. Supreme political authority, paramount control of the Constitution and frame of government and its administration. Self-sufficient source of political power from which all specific political powers are derived. The international independence of a state, combined with the right and power of regulating its internal affairs without foreign dictation. Also, a political society or state, which is sovereign and independent. Sovereignty consists of the combination of legal authority and responsibility that a government or individual has within our American system of jurisprudence. The key words in the above definition of sovereignty are foreign, uncontrollable, and independence. A sovereign is a servant and fiduciary of all sovereigns internal to it, not subject to the legislative or territorial jurisdiction of external sovereignty. This is because he is the author of the law that governs the external sovereign and therefore not subject to it. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law, for it is the author and source of law. While sovereign powers are delegated to the government, sovereignty itself remains with the people. Now, Heidi Byrick, Intelligence Project Director. 2 North Carolina detectives build program for dealing with sovereign citizens. Detectives Corey Flowers, K-O-R-Y-F-L-O-W-E-R-S, and Rob Finch, R-O-B-F-I-N-C-H, of Greensboro, North Carolina Police Intelligence Squad, were both involved in tracking white supremacists when a couple of years ago a new threat started to show up on their radar. After receiving phone calls from several officers whose routine traffic duties had brought them into contact with hostile drivers spouting bizarre nonsense about being exempt from U.S. laws. The detectives realized their county had become a destination for quote-unquote sovereign citizens, particularly self-proclaimed followers of Noble Drew Ali, a black separatist from the early 20th century whose Moorish ideology has been selectively adopted by many sovereigns. So this is what we're talking about as far as connecting the Moors, active Moors, true, sincere, loyal Moors, to the sovereignty movement because of dirty nigger Moors who chose to incept pseudo-sovereign concepts into Moorish nationality and birthrights. So these two so-called detectives of the police intelligence squad claim that we're self-proclaimed followers of Noble Drew Ali, who is a black separatist from the early 20th century, whose quote-unquote Moorish ideology has been selectively adopted by many sovereigns. Now we're going to go back again to the press, which is public record since January 8th, 2012, Winter Solstice Edition, Moorish Guide newspaper. It is most earnestly hoped that the Moorish Science Temple of America will not in any way be confused with any Back to Africa movement. Such is not important insofar as American citizens of our group colonizing Africa are concerned. Not to be compared to any Back to Africa movement, right? Calling yourself black and all that is connecting to a black separatist movement. So that's a clear violation right there, and they should be held responsible for that violation. Continue on. Determined to protect their country against the avalanche of fraudulent property liens and other baseless paperwork, quote unquote in brackets paper terrorism, sovereigns were filing against public officials they felt had wronged them. Flowers and Finch developed a comprehensive training system whose purpose was to arm officials with the information they need to combat the problem. The detectives, who have spent hundreds of hours interviewing sovereign ideologies, The detectives who have spent hundreds of hours interviewing sovereign ideologues emphasize that it is not only police that need training, but clerks of court, registrars of deeds, district attorneys, judges, fire inspectors, and other public officials involved in enforcement. The effort by Flowers and Finch comes as the number of sovereigns expands rapidly, along with the large anti-government patriot movement. The Southern Poverty Law Center has estimated that there are some 100,000 hardcore sovereigns operating in the United States, along with an estimated 200,000 more people who are dabbling in its bogus legal techniques. The number of patriot groups, including sovereign organizations, has exploded in the last 3 years, from 149 in 2008 to 1,274 last year. The ideology, which was birthed by white supremacist groups and originally said only white Americans could be sovereigns, has expanded rapidly in recent years in the black community typically among the black nationalist, so-called Moorish groups, as well as in many other populations. The intelligence report spoke with Flowers and Finch about what they've seen, what they teach, and what steps they think are needed to manage the problem. Now, determined to protect their country. Okay, but they're saying that their country is the United States. And the United States is not a country according to
The company
the
they want.
studies.
It's their company, that's what they want to say.
So, United States versus United States versus United States. Which one pertains to you? Black's Law Dictionary definition of United States. This term has several meanings. It may merely be the name of a sovereign occupying the position analogous to that of other sovereigns in the family of nations. It may designate territory over which sovereignty of the United States extends, or it may be a collective name of the states which are united by and under the Constitution. The first United States was created by the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 and 18. This United States received further authority under Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2, to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to this United States. The geographical area of the United States was extended beyond the District of Columbia to include Guam, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and Northern Mariana Islands and other territories, possessions, and enclaves. This geographical area, known as the United States, has its own citizens. See United States versus Cruikshank. Cruikshank. The second United States, with a lowercase u and capital S, are the 50 states united by the Constitution. This United States is known as the Republic. The Republic has citizens of its own, which are the sovereign citizens of each individual state, who delegated certain powers to the Congress of the United States, which are numerically outlined in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 through 16. When legislating for the second United States, hereafter called the Republic, all powers not enumerated in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 through 16 are reserved for the sovereign citizens of the Republic by the 9th and 10th Amendments of the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the Republic gave power to the Congress of the United States to legislate for the geographical area known as the first United States by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 and 18, and Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. The third United States is under international law. District of Columbia, collectively States of the Union. So, their country that they're determined to be protecting is a private corporation. So it goes into the questions now that they were asking and going through. And the first question: was there a specific incident that prompted you to look into quote-unquote sovereign movements? Oh yeah, and here they are right here, just so you could get a visual of who's pushing their propaganda on the Moors. And don't forget, these are paid agents. So, they're just doing their job. It's no big deal. How come we're not doing our job and dealing with these matters that come up? Because heads have decided to chill. Heads have decided to say, you know what? This is a religious movement. We're passive Moors. And, we pay our taxes and we have licenses and, we don't get in trouble. We follow the law. When that's not what Noble Drew Ali told the Moors. Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, enforce the Constitution. Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, all Moors are active, not passive. So passivity is not supposed to be existent in the Moorish movement. But it is. And this is why these two North Carolina detectives could build a program for dealing with sovereign citizens when Moors clearly are sovereign citizens. Greensboro, North Carolina, Greensboro N.C. Greensboro N.C. detectives. So they're even identifying the corporate states, which means that if they belong to a corporate state, then that means their country's corporate.
Yeah.
Period. So they're representing a private corporation called U.S., not the United States of America Republic. Greensboro detectives Rob Finch and Corey Flowers say police aren't the only ones who need training in dealing with sovereign extremists. So do court officials and many others. Oh, and let's give, because we got to get everybody on the record that's involved with the propaganda. So we can't forget Jennifer Warburg. Give her plug. She's the one that took the photo of these wonderful detectives. There's her name right there, so you can spell it when we get ready to take action. Jennifer Warburg. So all the Moors who are looking at this, and if you see your plates, if you see your tags on this table, understand Jennifer Warburg is the one that took the picture. And I'm pretty sure Jennifer Warburg or the detectives didn't even get permission from you to put your private property in the article. Let me see them put a Nike shoe in this article without permission from Nike. Let me see them put a McDonald's logo in an article without permission from McDonald's. But again, Moors have become passive. Moors have become, because I have a fez on, I'm a Moor, so, I'm at the finish line. When Adam Weishaupt told us in the letters to Morocco that he was sorry for not paying the taxes. George Washington, Adam Weishaupt, the German, the Bavarian Illuminati German that they naturalized, Adam Weishaupt, naturalized him and made him a U.S. corporate citizen so he can be the president of this private corporation. When he was writing the letters to the Emperor of Morocco as a general, he was making the claim that he's sorry for not paying taxes. But Moors aren't going to go tell the people about their nationality and birthrights out there. They're going to tell people that this is a passive movement and that they have to pay their taxes. Moors with feathers on.
You're saying it's wrong though, right? They should be paying taxes.
Well, if the Inquisition Revenue Services is collecting, where's the confusion? The confusion comes from heads who have been raised to sovereign power by the people, and they're violating the people's trust because they have a seat of power.
That's what you're saying. This Winesoff fellow is making a claim saying that he wishes he paid the taxes. Sorry.
He's saying that he's sorry. You know George Washington?
Right.
All right. George Washington isn't George Washington.
Yeah, his real name is Adam.
All right. So he admitted that they are the ones that are supposed to be paying the taxes.
To the people.
They admitted it. That's not what I say. That's George Washington, Adam Weishaupt says.
Right.
That they are the ones that are supposed to pay the taxes. But, right? But we have to deal with this propaganda right here. When these same guys right here, I know they haven't paid their taxes to the Moorish nation. These same officers who are quote-unquote public officials, detectives, you get good checks. Bet you they didn't pay their taxes. Corey Flowers. We had two different traffic stops where our guys stopped sovereigns, not Moors, not Moorish Americans, not Moorish group, not the Moorish sect. They stopped sovereigns. And then minutes later, other sovereigns were showing up and handing them documentation and talking about suing our officers, talking about immunity and Aboriginal rights and various things. Our officers, while they weren't completely ignorant, were just overwhelmed, and they contacted us in the intelligence unit, hoping we had answers from them, for them. So that's similar. Just so we could understand that this is propaganda, right? When I got stopped by the OPP said this exact same thing. They're not completely ignorant, but they're just overwhelmed by the magnitude of what you're telling me about you're indigenous and you have rights and you're exercising rights and you're giving me papers and
smashing the matrix right in front of
right, smashing the matrix right in front of their face. Right? Officer seeing the green doesn't know what's going on. Right? Right? Seeing it. Doesn't even know what's going on. Right in front of his face. And he's straight telling me, well, you know, I talked to my supervisor and, you know, we don't know what this is. So we're going to have to check this out because, you know, contacting the intelligence unit, hoping that they can get answers. But when they call the intelligence unit, which isn't really too intelligent, they realize they don't know anything. Which is why, when we had our class at the bookstore, everybody remembers that European that came in there. Right? That one of the Moors who is, you know, not fezzed up and blends in with downtown people, said that he knows that that's an officer. And he knows that that guy's his partner. Because he sees them downtown all the time in uniform. Coming to class. But, you know, because we're talking constitutional, you know, they didn't really have too much to sit there for. So I think that was even a class that we were talking about, you know, enforcing the Constitution on people who violate it. And they got up out of there quick time. No need to be there. Because these people are lawful, they're not doing nothing wrong. All they're doing is studying the Constitution and studying the Constitution Act of Canada and blah, blah, blah. They even stood up and asked some questions. He even stood up and said that the Constitution Act only applies to the people in the government. It doesn't even apply to the common people. This is an officer.
He said that because he had no choice.
Right?
The powers that be just spoke to him.
The Orishas grabbed him. You remember that day? Yeah. You know what I mean? Right? Saying all that, just to say, we have to stop thinking that they don't know. These guys have an intelligence unit. This is just North Carolina. We know they have an intelligence unit here. Because just today, again, one of the Moors going to do his paperwork, sealing and stamping and all that type of stuff, right? Goes to the court to talk to the commissioner of taking affidavits, bless it, right? Goes, takes his documents into the court, gets his documents sealed up by the commissioner for taking affidavits, leaves there, bumps into somebody that he knows who's clerk or something like that. Yo, reaming him out. Why don't you just get a lawyer? What are you doing? Do you know what confusion you're causing?
And this is somebody they know.
This is somebody who works in there that they know personally. Came to them and told them, yo, you know what? Why don't you just get a lawyer, man? Like, what are you doing? Why are you making this so hard?
Because it's going to affect their paycheck.
Right?
It's going to affect that person's paycheck.
Yo, big time. They literally sent her. They sent her. Had to have sent her. She's not going to come talk like that out of her mouth if they didn't send her. Right? Now, this part is because, we're not going to plug these guys. Go on the site.
Yo, fam, you got to look at this one question.
Go on the site. Yeah, if you read through it already?
Yeah, there's one where the man's like...
Let me hit this one up. See if you find it, and then let me hit this one up, right? So this is the good part. Rob Finch. Then a couple of our guys got sued.
Oh, I think that's what you're talking about. Let's say what?
We caught 2 different lawsuits. We caught. So you caught it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it didn't drop.
Right.
So that means you have it.
Right.
And you can't say that you didn't get it and that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So they caught 2 different suits in excess of $70 million. Each where the sovereign sued the officer, the officer's direct supervisor, the police department, the police chief, and the city of Greensboro. That caught the attention of some of our administrators who were beginning to pay attention and really drove home our resolve to get dialed in on this movement and create some training to keep officers safe. So now let's get to the real.
Look at page 3. The question: How much of a threat is this to law enforcement and other officials in the area? Look at what Flower says.
How much of a threat is this to law enforcement and other officials in your area? Finch: I don't think it's the #1 violent threat, but it's definitely the most intrusive threat to law enforcement because of paper terrorism and the associated paperwork. Flowers: it's much more intimidating and corrosive than threats of physical violence. You know, our guys, they aren't afraid of bullets and knives. But the idea of losing their house, losing their livelihood, it's propagated because it's worked. We get calls from officers who are discouraged from stopping sovereigns because they know their reputation. And that is for Negro, black, colored people who want to think that Moors are just flap, 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 flap. Here's the officer telling you that when they get sued, it sticks. They catch it. Touchdown. No drop balls over in that end zone over there. So now we're going to go to 3 rebuttals from Moors, active Moors in the movement, who, Canaanland Moors holds as master teachers, brothers, grand sheiks, grand governors, family. And, these are the individuals that are gonna be taking the steps with regard to the Moorish Defense League and something being done about these propaganda situations happening. All right. So the first letter is from Brother Jabbar C. Gaines Ill. And the phone number for Brother Jabbar is 260-241-4080. 260-241-4080. The brother said, call him anytime, because he's not worried about these people. He's worried about the Moors who are being politically terrified from their birthright. Moors who are unconscious of their birthright, and they see that article and then they don't want to be Moors because of that article, when you can't be what you are. You're that. You can't not be a Moor because you read an article about somebody have propaganda against Moors, so you don't want to be involved with that. It doesn't work like that, right? So this is his letter. Greetings and Islam. Moorish Americans have become the target of yet another publicly declared mission statement at the bequest of rogue agents, this time to illegally construct programs that will possibly activate the political, cultural, ethnic, and religious persecution of innocent citizens for no other reason than the mere fact that they have enjoyed themselves to exercise their God-given rights. Rights that are protected by the U.S. Constitution and further defended by the laws set forth by the international community of nations of one's universal accepted right to declare a nationality for themselves. It is a public outcry that anyone would be so audacious to present such an open conspiracy to the public. And at the core of its mission statement is the illegal witch hunt of any citizen that just so happens to have been born into this world and upon these shores as a Moorish American. It is a most dehumanizing assertion to associate the possible criminality of a few isolated individuals to the national identity of an entire citizenry of people. Not only is this a supreme act of ignorance, but it is deplorable in its very nature to do so. If the true intent and motivation of those seeking members of society to actively identify citizens that belong to a particular ethnicity, if closely analyzed, we will see that these proposed tactics are absolutely unconstitutional. These hate-based operations geared at others for their nationality hasn't been seen in this capacity since the preliminary stages that led up to the loss of innocent Jewish lives during the Holocaust. And it is within this context that Moorish Americans throughout this entire Western Hemisphere stand united in complete solidarity. We demand that the U.S. Constitution and the North Carolina State Constitution be enforced by those sworn to preserve it. We officially request that Governor Beverly Perdue immediately investigate the constitutionality of what is being called the Inquisition policy of 2013 and beyond. This is being defined as the conspiracy to integrate hate-based programs throughout the public domain by exclusively discriminating against Moorish Americans due to their nationality. As a result, in this being the most current in a long line of abuses, we are now presenting to all Moorish Americans in the very near future the opportunity to join the newly formed Moorish Defense League. In brief, the Moorish Defense League will be the primary organization that will lead the efforts in bringing an end to the defamation of Moorish Americans. In conclusion, let it be forever known and accepted that the clean and pure nation of Moorish Americans are law-loving and law-abiding people. We only seek to adhere in the universal principles of our ancestors, that being love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, not only for Moorish Americans, but for the entire human family. We must reiterate that we are not sovereign citizens as defined within the media outlets. We are not anti-government. We are a nation of people who demand the same respect as any other nation would in regard to these most pressing issues in concerning our nationality and birthrights. And above all, we are here to preserve, promote, and defend and to enforce the U.S. Constitution. Warning: anyone that seeks to violate our nationality and birthrights, it would be wise to review the signed legislation in reference to the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People by President Barack Obama. Sincerely, Jabbar C. Gaines Ill. And the number again is 260-241-4080. Now, he says, questions to ponder. Why is there so much controversy surrounding the nationality and status of Moorish Americans? Why haven't other nationalities been targeted in this fashion? What is the responsibility of active Moors in light of this recent event? Can Moors bring charges against public servants for denying lawful correspondence? How many Moors are familiar with filing a claim in an international area? Can these hate-based programs actually be interwoven in public offices? Does sovereignty have any correlations to birthrights? So those are just some questions that the Moor put out there for Moors to consider. Second letter is from Jelani Kalfani Bey, and this is one of the good brothers, one of the high sheiks, the Moorish adepts in South Carolina. This is a genocidal remark as well as a discriminatory one. He stated that he had been following white supremacists, the ones who have killed and wounded policemen and U.S. government officials. Then he says, in the past few years, a new threat has come up in this country, says the cop in his county via phone calls. His quote, particularly self-proclaimed followers of Noble Drew Ali, a black separatist who are constantly attacked by them and has done nothing to do them any moral harm. This is a very serious issue because I hate to say it, but he is right about the self-proclaimed individuals who are using the Prophet's name to gain land and property, get out of debts, traffic tickets, etc. Yet on the other hand, these Albions are saying that the new threat are these Asiatics. See, we spend all the time checking and pecking at each other while our enemy is setting us up for slaughter. They are trying to make us the cannon fodder. Attack Moorish Americans whether you kiss their butt or not, with the lie that the Prophet said we are to obey their laws. This puts us in a position that when we declare war on the sovereign citizens, that war will be on us. So when they get a whole bunch of bodies and names that are Moorish and not sovereigns, it looks like they have made a great accomplishment and not touched one of their own and wipe us out. This is very serious. You Negroes and gurus, gonna let them talk about your prophet, calling him a black separatist, disrespecting our prophet and our religion, and yet you want to talk trash to each other. Time to clean house and prepare for the time when our prophet said the blood would run up to the horse's brow. Either piss or get off the pot. If you are not talking the prophet's law and commandments, turn in your buttons, fez, turbans, pins, and beat feet, and haul behind hours of this Moorish divine and national movement. They say they are protecting the country from us. We need protection from them because it is they who stop us for no reason whatsoever for the most part. Because we have identification plates that are there to let them know that the land transport does not belong or is not under the jurisdiction of the state corporation. The reason why you most Moors try the patriot stuff is because the Constitution and their treaty stuff is not working. Why? Because they can't hear issues of Constitution in their courts. Their courts are for their property. And because the majority of the Negroes posing as Moors, won't enforce our Constitution and laws and follow simple instructions and stop calling to the names and principles that delude to slavery, i.e. James, Walter, Gigglesworth. These Christian names were supposed to be given back to the European, but instead you Negroes tell our citizens to keep those names and add L or Bay. Chapter, verse, sentence, paragraph, where that rubbish is written by proclamation and mandate of the prophet, not hearsay or rumor. Show me the document where it gives those instructions. Those who are living within the constitutional fold are called anarchists by our own people. Meanwhile, they have contracts with Christendom. Treacherous traitors. They need to be dealt with ASAP. We must call for a class action suit from every Moor who oppose the Constitution, especially our divine Constitution and bylaws. I am not preparing a diplomatic correspondence for the North Carolina Republic and all other states on behalf of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science of the world. I can't speak for no one else. Too many traitors on that side of the fence. Peace and honor. And that's Jelani Kalfani Bey, and he could be reached on Facebook at Jelani Bey. J-E-L-A-N-I-B-E-Y. Lastly, this is from Brother Alimel Bey, and he can be reached at cultural-freedom.com. Cultural-freedom.com. Read The Black Washita Nation on America. Blacks also owned miles of U.S. pre-Columbian lands by Paul Barton. One of the saddest aspects of enslavement in the Americans, particularly North America, is the fact that all forms of education was denied us and still is today. quote-unquote blacks were forced to remain ignorant and told they have no history or culture. Well, here's the problem. Most African Americans are still void of historical knowledge, particularly of their ownership to the lands right here in the US. Quote-unquote blacks owned about actually more than 1 million square miles of land in the Louisiana Territory and the southern eastern Florida region, as well as California. In all these areas, the U.S. said there were so-called black African American nations before Columbus. We who were targeted for enslavement due to the papal edict that gave the Christian nations of Europe the go-ahead to make slaves of all descendants of Ham found in the newly discovered lands. This fact cannot be denied. The essay on Black Civilizations of Ancient America, published as the great book Susu Economics, The History of Pan-African Trade, Commerce, Money and Wealth, tells a reality of this. While many of quote-unquote Africa's ancestors were kidnapped in Africa, many were Africans who came from West Africa, had a number of kingdoms and empires in the southern parts of the US, and who were captured, had their lands taken, and their persons sold into slavery. These quote-unquote Africans were direct so-called black ancestors, and they had a continuing connection with West Africa, which included trade and commerce on the very eve of the invasion of Europeans to the Americas. Read Sex and Race Volume 1 by J.A. Rogers, and They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima. Then he goes into the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Section 1. Indigenous Peoples. Definition. In this declaration, indigenous peoples are those who embody historical continuity with societies which existed prior to conquest and settlement of their territories by Europeans. I'm pretty sure those two officers are Europeans. As well as peoples brought involuntarily to the New World who freed themselves and re-established the cultures from which they have been torn, as well as tribal peoples whose social, cultural, and economic conditions distinguish them from other sections of national community and whose status is regulated wholly or partially by their own customs or traditions or by special laws or regulations. And you can just go through that yourself. The Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Thus, as indigenous people, remember the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Let's see. The said white supremacists, racists, such as the Southern Poverty, Colorable Law Center, and etc., get past the United Nations definition. They cannot, because this includes those saying that they were here before Europeans came, as well as those brought here to North America, Amaruca, Amexem, etc. In plain words, all dark-skinned people, whether from said Native American descent or said African descent. Self-identification as indigenous or tribal is fundamental criterion. According to the U.S. Department of State website, Tribal Consultation, President Obama announced that the United States of America has changed its position on the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The United States of America has changed its position on the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. The United States of America supports the declaration, which, while not legally binding or a statement of current international law, has both moral and political force. It expresses both aspirations of indigenous peoples around the world and those of states in seeking to improve their relations with indigenous peoples. Most importantly, it expresses aspirations of the United States that this country seeks to achieve within the structure of the U.S. Constitution, laws, and international obligations, while also seeking, where appropriate, to improve our laws and policies. Therefore, the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People states, we indigenous people have the right to a nationality based on our indigenous origin or identity, free from any kind of discrimination in the exercise of their rights. Our nationality is Washita the Dug de Moundia Moor. In order to have a nationality, you must have a land tie. Right to determine our own identity or membership in accord with their customs and traditions. The right to determine the structures and to select the membership of our institutions in accordance with our own procedures. Right to revitalize, use, develop, and transmit to future generations their histories, languages, oral traditions, philosophies, writing systems, and literatures, and to designate and retain our own names for communities, places, and persons. According to the above United Nations International Treaty definition, all so-called Black Americans, Moors, are indigenous. Indigenous means natural person. All natural persons are human beings and sovereigns of the land, because they are rightful owners of the land. This is coming from Black's Law Dictionary, 7th edition. Just look up natural persons. All Washita Moors. Moors are beyond first-class citizens and don't even know it, because we have accepted his story and slave labels like Negro, Black, and Colored. Now that you have received one of the most detailed explanations of who you actually are, the question is, what are you going to do? Well, as mentioned previously, the Inter-American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples draft approved by the IACHR at the 1278 session held on September 18, 1995 states, self-identification as indigenous or tribal shall be regarded as a fundamental criteria for determining the groups to which the provisions of this declaration apply. This self-identification at an international level is also at the national level. However, at the national level, it is called self-authenticating. In the said United States, according to the Federal Rules of Evidence, note, each state also uses the rules of evidence, just different codes. Rule 902, evidence that is self-authenticating. The following items of evidence are self-authenticating. They require no extrinsic evidence of authority in order to be admitted. 1. Domestic public documents. These are sealed and signed, a document that bears a seal purporting to be that of the United States, any state, district, commonwealth, territory, or insular possession of the United States, the former Panama Canal Zone, the trust territory of the Pacific Islands, a political subdivision of any of these entities, or a department, agency, or officer of any entity named above, and a signature purporting to be an execution or attestation. Domestic public documents that are not sealed but are signed and certified, a document that bears no seal if it bears the signature of an officer or employee of an entity named in Rule 902, and another public officer who has a seal and official duties within the same entity certified under the seal, or its equivalent, that the signer has the official capacity and the signature is genuine. 3. Foreign public documents. A document that purports to be signed or attested by a person who is authorized by a foreign country's law to do so. The document must accompany by a final certification that certifies the genuineness of the signature and official position of the signer or attester, or If any foreign official whose certificate of genuineness relates to the signature or attestation, or is in a chain of certificates of genuineness relating to the signature or attestation, the certification may be made by a Secretary of the United States Embassy or Legation, by a Consul General, Vice Consul, or Consul Agent of the United States, or by a diplomatic or consular official of the foreign country assigned or accredited to the United States. If all parties have been given a reasonable opportunity to investigate the document's authenticity and accuracy, the court may, for good cause, either order that it be treated as presumptively authentic without final certification, or allow it to be evidence as attested summary with or without final certification. Certified copies of public records. A copy of an official record. A copy of a document that was recorded or filed in a public office as authorized by law, if the copy is certified as correct by the custodian or another person authorized to make the certification. A certificate that complies with Rule 902. Official publications, a book, pamphlet, or other publication purported to be issued by a public authority, newspapers and periodicals, trade inscriptions, etc., etc. Therefore, if everything is based on real history, international law, indigenous law, and even federal state law, the rules of evidence, then how can it be paper terrorism, and how can we be so-called black sovereign citizens and not belong to the titled sovereign citizens group, but are indigenous, based on the United Nations declarations and Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States of America? Amazing how so-called lawyers, esquires, and attorneys can miss so much evidence. In a real court of law, you're actually practicing treason. And that was the last letter by Alim El Bey. And for Brother Alim, you can get to him at www.cultural-freedom.com. So again, just going to put it on the record. If the Moors are interested in being part of and assisting in the work of the Moorish Defense League, please contact Brother Jabbar Gaines Ill at 260-241-4080. And as we close out, we're just going to list through some constitutional rights. Before we do that, let's just read energy from King Alfred plan so we can understand why all this propaganda and why they're going through these motions, right? It's about getting energy. Energy is recognized as the key to all activity on earth. Natural science is the study of the sources and control of natural energy, and the social science, theoretically expressed as economics, is the study of the sources and control of social energy. Both are bookkeeping systems, mathematics. Therefore, mathematics is the primary energy science, and the bookkeeper can be king if the public can be kept ignorant of the methodology of the bookkeeping. All science is merely a means to an end. The means is knowledge, the end is controlled. Beyond this remains only one issue: who will be the beneficiary? In 1954, this was the issues of primary concern. Although the so-called moral issues were raised in view of the law of natural selection, it was agreed that a nation or world of people who will not use their intelligence are no better than animals who do not have intelligence. Such a people are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. Consequently, in the interest of future world order, peace, and tranquility, it was decided to privately wage a quiet war against the American public, with an ultimate objective of permanently shifting the natural and social energy (wealth) of the undisciplined and irresponsible many into the hands of the self-disciplined and responsible and worthy few. In order to implement this objective, it was necessary to create, secure, and apply new weapons which, as it turned out, were a class of weapons so subtle and sophisticated in their principle of operation and public appearance as to earn for themselves the name silent weapons. In conclusion, the objective of economic research as conducted by the magnates of capital banking and the industries of commodities, goods, land, services is the establishment of an economy which is totally predictable and manipulable. In order to achieve a totally predictable economy, the low-class elements of the society must be brought under total control, i.e., must be housebroken, trained, and assigned a yoke and long-term social duties from a very early age before they have an opportunity to question the propriety of the matter. In order to achieve such conformity, the lower class family unit must be disintegrated by a process of increasing preoccupation of the parents and the establishment of government-operated daycare centers for the occupationally orphaned children. The quality of education given to the lower class must be of the poorest sort, so that the meat of ignorance isolating the inferior class from the superior class is and remains incomprehensible to the inferior class. With such an initial handicap, even bright lower class individuals have little, if any, hope of extricating themselves from their assigned lot in life. This form of slavery is essential to maintaining some measure of social order, peace, tranquility for the ruling upper class.
You know what I've realized in looking at some of this stuff sort of through public housing and stuff, they seem to push the single mother.
Right, agenda.
And what I've realized is that through this sort of domestic violence sort of programs and the breaking of the family core, what happens is, and the way that they've changed the dynamic around how the family, it's basically the child who runs the family now, right? And the child's well-being, right? Construed through what I would consider the European sort of doctrine.
Right.
So if the child isn't at school, you can actually come and
Good.
take the parents
Exactly.
to jail.
Exactly.
Right? So if the child isn't being programmed in our way as the slave, then we are going to arrest you.
Right.
Right? But what we've done is we've broken the yoke, we've broken the connection. So once that happens, the woman who, in a sense, unfortunately seems to me in some ways to be less able to fight, or at least maybe because the core has been broken, allows for them to sort of continue propagating sort of a slave base.
We'll connect.
A slave base, right? Continually having children who aren't then being given the right education.
Right. On top of that, they're getting money every month.
That's right.
For every child that they have.
That's right.
Right. So.
That's right.
Right. And just to close out, warned you Moors. Right. Told the Moors a good while ago. Right. Told the Moors a good while ago. E Division Criminal Intelligence Section, Provincial Intelligence Center, Officer Awareness Bulletin, Free Man on the Land, August 3rd, 2011. The information is being provided in this document has been collected with the intent of timely dissemination and in support of criminal operations. Recipients are encouraged to self-verify all information contained in this report before using it for any investigative, enforcement action, evidence, or other legal proceedings. Free Man on the Land. Members of the Free Man on the Land, FOTL, can present risks to officer safety. Officers are urged to exercise caution in dealing with known suspected members of Free Man on the Land. The Free Man on the Land is a libertarian and anti-government movement whose members believe that they are sovereign citizens and not subject to the laws of Canada. They also believe that they have the right to use force, including deadly force, in defense of their land, property, and family. Moors, do not eat with Free Man on the Land, sovereign citizen, son of God, John of the family, whatever name. Do not play with what Noble Drawley brought you. Noble Drawley brought us our nationality and our birthrights. That's a documented fact. And all we have to do is adhere to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, enforce the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution for the United States of America, the Constitution for the United States of America Republic, and every constitution that they have out there. Enforce all of them on these chumps. On top of that, amongst each other, we need to enforce the divine constitution and bylaws on the people who claim that they're the ones that are in authority and they're the ones that are, okay, so if you're in such an authority, then they should be doing this. This is not the job of the Moorish Defense League. This is the job of the heads of the nation. But again, if those people are sitting down, somebody's going to stand up. And active Moors, stay active. We're making some headway in this, right? They're not going to be setting up intelligence units and all this type of stuff if the Moors were passive.
Right.
So continue the good work, Moors. Islam, we're just going to close out with prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is our protector.
Allah is our protector.
Our guide.
Our guide.
And our salvation.
And our salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through his and her holy prophet.
Through his and her holy prophet.
Noble Drawley.
Noble Drawley.
Islam.
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 Peace, Moors.
You want me to turn this off?
Yeah, please.
Saying standby, is that fine?
Yeah. I think our line rate probably turned off.
Oh, it's going through that. Hey, you.